Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Sunday. So, we are still going to do the weekly questions from this last week that we just did, but I also am going to start incorporating some of the discussion posts that I am going to do weekly. I'm getting a lot of feedback from people, and they are telling me that they like the discussion post where you don't necessarily get A, B, and C or D for choice options. It's more so to get your just to get your brain going, right? Just to get some of those thoughts, some of the things that you have read, and you're going to put it into perspective. So today we actually are going to have a little bit of story time with Kerry. So hang on to that. Watch all the way through this video because I'm going to put a few things into perspectives when it comes to you finding the best answer for some of these questions. Now, as always, we are going to treat these questions as if we are taking the MFT national exam, right? Let's take a look at this first question. So we have a single mother. She's frustrated with her 17-year-old son. He dropped out of school. He's been spending all of his day in his room playing those video games. She's had repeated attempts to get him to look for a job or to enroll in a GED program, right? But all of her attempts has failed, right? So he's the central point of a lot of the conflict that's been going on in the family. Or so they think so, right? As a strategic therapist, what would that strategic therapist most likely view when it comes to the mother's attempts in order to help her son, right? How would this strategic therapist view the attempts, right? So if we take a look at those answer responses, and as always, feel free to pause this video, find the best answer response before I reveal the best answer response. And if you find that best answer response before I reveal these breadcrumbs, kudos to you. You've done a great job. So let's take a look at some of these breadcrumbs that we have, okay? Now, if we were taking this exam, I went back, I highlighted. See, we have a mother. She's had repeated attempts. That word right there, repeated attempts, right? Seems to believe that the son's behavior is the center point of the conflict in the family, right? A strategic therapist would view the mother attempts how? Take a look at B. The symptoms being used is maintained, is trying to maintain a family homeostasis. Now, I know we discussed about our systems theory, our systemic therapeutic models is also strategic therapy. But right here, that's not occurring. It's not trying to maintain homeostasis in the family. What we are getting is that the son keeps doing the same thing, the mom keeps doing the same thing, and they're not getting anywhere. That's what we get from this vignette, right? C says a failure of parental power and authority. Yes, that's true, because if you really wanted to dive deeper, the son really doesn't respect the mom doesn't have any power, because if she did, then the son would have a job and he wouldn't be playing those video games every day, right? D says a sign that the mother needs to set firmer boundaries. Yeah, we know that. But from a strategic therapy lens, which one of these answer responses best matches that? And that's A. A sincere but misguided attempt to solve the problem. So when we think strategic therapy, we think about what? Those interaction sequences, those disabling sequences that continue to keep happening over and over and over again, right? But this family keeps doing the same thing to try to get rid of this symptom that they have. But they keep getting the same solutions, right? It's the same problem, same solutions, and you're being stuck in these same patterns. That is more your strategic therapy lens versus the B, C, or D. Okay? I'm hoping that makes sense. If not, always leave a comment and I can go in more deeper depth to explain that. So for this question, a therapist is working with the family, the adolescent son. He's been diagnosed with ADHD. He consistently refuses to go to school. The parents have tried everything from the nagging, the punishments, and also a reward system. But the behavior is not doing anything but intensifying, and they are getting caught in the power struggles. The therapist suspects that the son's refusal is a way of controlling the family system. So again, those are some strategic terms, if I don't know what, right? All in there is like some of the strategic terms that we are seeing, right? The therapist thinks that the refusal is a way for them to control a system. The mom and the parents or whatever has been nagging, punishment, and rewards, and nothing is changing. From a strategic therapy perspective, which of the following interventions would be most appropriate? Now, here's the thing. we're going to take a look at some of these answer responses, and we're just going to take a deeper dive into them before I do the breadcrumbs and reveal the best answer, right? But ask the parents, when your son refuses to do his homework, who gets most upset. So if you were to see a question like this on the exam, A would automatically like stop you and be like, okay, I see that. I know what type of question that is. And you should be able to say like, I know which model this is from, right? Right? C says, help the parents see their son refusal as a sign of his fierce independence and a desire to control his own educational paths. Now, does that sound strategic to you? As an intervention that a strategic therapist would use? If not, don't choose it. D says, suggest the son's behavior is a loyal attempt to keep the family focused on a problem. Again, does that sound like a strategic intervention to you? If it's not, then don't pick it. Now, I highlighted A in yellow because, oh my God, that's a circular question that's right there, right? It's part of that, right? Because which therapist uses that? Which therapist uses circular questioning in their techniques? It's an intervention, right, from one of those three that we sometimes can't really like decipher, but it's not one of your strategic therapy interventions that you would choose. If you take a look at B, the word instruct should have like caught your eye. Instruct the parents to tell their son to refuse to do his homework for 30 minutes each day. Which type of intervention is this that is being used for B? Leave a comment and let me know what it is, right? Also for A, which model is that intervention from? For B, same thing. Which intervention is being used in B? Always, 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 when you see some of these questions and you feel like you're hitting like, a wall and it's like, I can't find what the best answer, try looking for some of those terms that is going to match what that model is about. Find the key terms that match what that model entails, what it's like known for. Try your best to look for that if you hit like a wall and you can't find the best answer. Okay, now it is story time. So let's take a dive into Tarasoff versus Regents. Now this really sparked a lot back in the 70s regarding how a clinician is going to work with a client that is saying they want to hurt somebody, kill somebody, whatever the case may be. So what's in front of you is kind of like the discussion that we had in the group on the post. But let's take a little dive into the history of the Tarasoff case and how it even started to begin with. And I'm going to try to say these names the proper way as I possibly can. So in 1968, we have Podar. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Podar, right? Podar met Tatiana Tarasoff at Berkeley University in California. So to speak, you would say they had a romantic relationship, whatever the case may be. Tatiana didn't want that, but Podar wanted more. He wanted more from her, so much that he became obsessed with her and started to stalk her and things of that nature. Now, in 1969, Tatiana went back to Brazil. She went to Brazil to visit home, right? But at that time, Podar had started to go to therapy because a friend told him, hey, something may be going on with you. Why don't you go talk to a therapist? The therapist that he started working with was Dr. Moore. He told Dr. Moore that he was going to kill Tatiana. Now, Dr. Moore, took what he said. Hey, we're going to the campus police at Berkeley University. Took him to the campus police. The police detained him. But then they also released him saying, stay away from Tatiana. Don't bother her. Leave her alone. And they believed that Podar was going to do that. I hope I'm pronouncing his name the right way. That he was going to do that, right? But he didn't. Because a few weeks later, Tatiana returned back from Brazil. Podar went to Tatiana's home and he stabbed her to death. Now, he called and confessed to the crime, said, hey, he just killed her. He was picked up. He was detained. He went to jail. Now, the parent has a huge role in the Tarasoff case and what we know now as the duty to warn and duty to protect. Because After Tatiana was murdered in 1970, Tatiana's parents sued Berkeley University, and they also sued Dr. Moore. Now, Podar was supposed to be convicted of second-degree murder, but it was overturned because they said that it was not enough information, or he was inadequately told something. So it was overturned, and they told him, you need to go back to India, don't come back. So he moved back to India, whatever the case may be. Now, Tatiana's parents became furious. Why wasn't my daughter warned that this man was going to kill her? So she sued them. She sued Dr. Moore, and she sued Berkeley University, right? Now, it took 4 years for the California Supreme Court to say, hey, let's do Tarasoff 1, which is the duty to warn. But then, once we finally got the duty to warn, it was an uproar with it because they felt as though, well, this is not enough. We need more. So there was another rehearing that they did in 1976. Tarasoff 1 was 1974, Tarasoff 2 was 1976, where they implemented the duty to protect, which is like everything that we know now. You know, the duty to protect is going to be warn this intended victim, but then also we need something that is going to protect the public, which is to do what? To call law enforcement. Now, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years later, there was another piece of this puzzle that came in. After the duty to protect was put into place in 1976, a lot of clinicians started to get nervous. This is just my perspective on it. Because a lot of clinicians started to get sued for breaching confidentiality when they have a client that is telling them they want to harm somebody. So in 1985, I believe it was 1985 or 1986, they then put something else into place stating that a clinician must have viable evidence, must have enough information and a credible threat before they can activate duty to warn or duty to protect. And I don't blame these clinicians. Just in 1969, on October 27th, in 1969, Tarasoff was murdered because a man told his therapist that he was going to kill her. Campus police said, leave her alone. He was released. He returned to her home, killed her. So now we've got these principles that are put into place, but we got some clinicians that are nervous and they are scared, right? I got a client that's telling me they want to hurt somebody. I got to tell somebody. So then in 1985, they implemented that you must have that credible threat. How heartbreaking is it? And I looked at this and I was just like, I'm learning and I'm reading it, and I'm just like, how heartbreaking is this to have parents that just lost their daughter, but to fight and go up against the Supreme Court saying this is a wrongful death. We need to not happen this. We need to make sure that this does not happen in the future, right? So that's your classic. That's your Tarasoff story. So whenever you see a question that comes up on the exam about Tarasoff, you now have the background to it and you understand why. You also are able to navigate those questions much differently when you are able to have an understanding of it. And the thing about it is, I'm not telling you anything that I didn't do, because I knew for a fact that in order for me to know how to navigate these questions, find the best answer to these questions, I had to have a clear understanding of it. And since I do have a clear understanding of, the Tarasoff ruling, it's easier to navigate those questions. But then also, what is the purpose of it? What is the purpose of Tarasoff in the first place? We look at it in a standpoint where it's like, I have a duty to protect another victim. But then I also have a duty to protect my own client that I have when my client is telling me, hey, I'm going to go kill somebody else, but then I'm also going to kill myself. So it's like when you see those type of questions, it's like, okay, well, is the duty to warn, duty to protect for the victim, or is it also for my client? When you get a question like that, it's for everyone. It needs to be for everybody, right? It's a balance of the ethical duty that a clinician has, but then also that breach of confidentiality, because Once you know that your client is telling you that they are going to kill someone else or harm someone else, they've told you how, they told you where, they told you when, they have, even have gone and told you, like, I know what time they get off work, I know where they live, I've seen them this many times. You have to do something about that. And the Tarasoff case is what taught us that. And as heartbreaking as that case is for her parents and for her family, it really now does a lot of protection for the clinicians that are working today. It's heartbreaking, but it really paved the way for the clinicians that we have today, and also to protect any future victims, that could be part of what your client, feels like they don't deserve to live, or they may be struggling like mentally, where they're just like killing someone is the only way that they know how, right? And then there was a lot of other controversy with the Tarasoff ruling many years after the 1974, 1976, and 1985 passing of some of those legislations and stuff. There's still like a lot of controversy to it. I take a deeper dive, but I'm not going to do that. But that was story time with Kerry. I hope you all now have a better understanding, and you are better able to navigate these questions when you do see them come up on the exam, okay? Now, we also had a post in the group about attention seeking when it comes to self-harm with teenager kids or whatever. Is it attention seeking? Can we say it's attention seeking? Yes, no, we can. But is it a cry for help? Yes, no, it is. Whether if this kid is saying this just to get your attention, or whether they're saying this just to be like, hey, you know what, you never listen to me, so if I say this, maybe you will. An adult that says it, teenager, a kid, whoever the case may be, don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it and say it's just attention seeking, because then you do what? You put risk, of missing out on whether or not if this client is actually like for real. And then, at some point, it can also harm the relationship and the rapport that you have with this client. So when you see a question like that and it says, the parent says that it's attention seeking and they don't care about it and they're not worried about it, you still need to assess it. You can also validate the feelings, but then you also need to assess. Your main thing is always going to be what first? Safety is always going to be first. Safety is your first thing that you're going to go to. Any mention of self-harm or anything, don't ignore it. Even if you indicate that the risk is low, you've still done what you were supposed to do and you've assessed the situation. Right? And sometimes they may have answers that be like, explain confidentiality or whatever, because, sometimes some of the answer responses may say something like, let the parents know. If that's the best answer out of the 4, then yes, that would be the best one. But typically, most of the time, you need to assess the situation. And if it's like if it's a high risk, you may have to involve other people, right? Whether if it's going to be the parents, family members, or even calling 911. You may see some answer responses that has you collaborating with teens and the parents when it comes to that. Just because it doesn't say collaborate with parents on a safety plan doesn't mean that that's not the right answer. If that's the best answer of the 4, then that's the one that you should go with. But as always, do not just say, a client that is telling you that they've been self-harming or they are going to self-harm is a form of attention seeking and then you ignore it. You must pay attention to it, okay? And this was also another discussion. When a client discloses physical abuse from their partner while in the session, typically some of your answer responses are going to be separate the couple, do individual assessments, create a safety plan. Some of those are some of your 3 obvious answers that you might see. But what happens when the obvious answer is not there and it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm looking for this obvious answer. This is why I do this with the fill in the blanks and the discussions. It teaches you to not put your thoughts in like this bubble. It teaches you to take a step outside of it, where you are now not just like repeating or just memorizing something. You are now critically thinking when it comes to how to answer those proper questions when you see them on the exam, right? So sometimes those obvious answers may not be there, but at all times, you must choose an answer response that is going to pave way to what is going on in that vignette. Trust me, once you've gotten your brain to speak a new language, you'll be able to see those answer responses highlight and jump out to you because you're thinking differently, okay? Never choose anything about ignoring or minimizing that, a partner has disclosed to you that their wife or their husband has been, harming them, has been abusing them, right? Sometimes you cannot choose an answer responses that tells you to contact the police. We have our clients that has autonomy. We have our code of ethics that also speaks about autonomy when it comes to our clients. We also do not pressure our clients to leave the relationship. Please don't choose answer responses that has you telling them leave their relationship. That's taking away our clients' autonomy, right? I have yet to see answer responses that tells you to contact the police. I've never seen that. I've never seen an answer response that also has you telling the client to leave the relationship. So stay away from them. Don't ignore. Don't minimize the disclosure that they've given to you. Please don't tell them to contact the police, and don't encourage them to leave the relationship. Look for answer responses that has you working clinically with this couple, such as separating them, conducting individual assessments, and also creating a safety plan for the client that is being abused. Now, we also had a discussion on the signs of suicide risk increase. A lot of people gave a lot of good answers. I really love the discussions that we have on it. So sometimes you might see a vignette, and this is not just even for the exam. None of this is not always just for the exam. It is also for your clients that you work with as well, so that you'll be able to, notice, hey, something seems off. I need to, assess more, right? So flat out talking about wanting to die or killing themselves, that's your risk, right? Hopelessness, feeling like they've lost interest in things, don't want to do anything anymore, giving away their possessions, feeling like they're a burden to somebody else. Increased talk about like death and dying is definitely going to be one of them. Some of the behavior signs is going to be, like I just said, giving away some of those possessions, sometimes making a will or rewriting a will of saying like goodbye or whatever is also going to be your increased risk. Withdrawal from like your friends and families, not doing the same things that you once do. Talking about a means like buying a gun, buying something new, different, like internet searches and stuff. If you haven't seen your client doing that before, then they start doing it, something's going on, something may be off, meaning that you should be assessing for them. Self-harming behaviors can also be one of them, so you definitely want to assess. And then previous suicide attempts is always going to be a bigger predictor in the future for if they might try it again. So again, I hope that you take each and every one of these, and like when you see it in a question, it's always a red flag. When you see something about self-harm, giving away possessions, feeling like they can't live anymore, or something as simple as like, I just want to disappear, don't ignore it. Assess, pave way to what's going on in that vignette. Same way with your clients, don't ignore it. I work with teenagers, and even though, and I hate like saying this or sounding like this, but I have one of my students that are just like all the time, well, if you don't come get me for session, I'm going to kill myself. And it's just like, don't say that, even though it's like she says it over and over and over again, but I still like, hey, like what you said is concerning to me, and I have to do the same thing. And then they'll just be like, blah, 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 blah. I already know. But then they've done what they did to make sure they get their therapist that they want to speak to. But yes, do not ignore any of those signs. Now, I noticed in a group, I am going to be doing things differently. So I am going to continue to do the fill in the blank posts. I am going to continue to do the discussion posts, as well as the exam formats. While I'm going to be finding questions from off of Quizlet, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, any of the AI apps that are out there. That's what I've been using in the group, and I'm finding a better way to check the validity of them and just like teach them in a better way. So I've had a few people tell me they like the fill in the blanks, they love the discussion posts, but then there are some people that kind of like shy away from them and sometimes I just think like, well, why is she doing this? Because it's not going to be like this on the exam. The thing about it is, Fill in the blanks and discussion posts, like I said, is one way for you to step outside of that bubble, to get out of your comfort zone, to look more into some of these discussions in depth so that you have a good understanding of it. I did the exact same thing. Sometimes I'm like, well, I don't want to read this book. I just want to like see a word and I want to discuss it. I want to see a phrase, I want to see an intervention, and I just want to present it, right? I just want to talk about it. And if I can freely talk about it and have this discussion without tripping over it and telling myself, no, that's not right, that belongs to this one, that means I have clarity and understanding of it. And once you get to that point with that clarity and understanding, it ain't a question that's going to come up on an exam that is going to scare you, deter you, or make you feel as if you don't know anything. So I encourage each and every one of you, when I do like a discussion post or when I'm doing fill in the blanks, chime in. Please be a part of it. Step outside of your comfort zone. This will also help you stray away from always looking for those obvious answers. Okay? Alrighty, everyone. I hope everyone enjoy the rest of their Sunday. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just like always, please reach out. Please send me a message and I will respond. I will talk to you all soon.